Okay, so it's my second shot at this because, yeah, talking to a camera is definitely not my forte. Certainly a lot harder than most people online give it credit for. But yeah, anyway, got the 180 in the shed now. My mate's S14 that usually occupies this space is out getting dynoed for the next couple of days, so yeah, thought I'd take this opportunity to get it in here and give it a bit of a once over and start making some changes. The 180 usually lives over here, but the S12's occupied that space for the last 6 odd months because I've just been extremely lazy and then ruined my back. So this is kind of yeah, been on pause for a while, but I've recently got a bit of work done on it. So for anyone that's interested, it's getting an S13 rear subframe swapped into it. So that's yeah, in the bane of my existence for the last fucking probably best part of a year. Started it out there on the dirt and then got it in here and took the 180 spot. So yep, definitely quite the undertaking that was. But anyway, back to the 180. Yeah, so finally got to drive the car a couple of times. Got some decent amount of laps under its belt, which was good. Got to feel the car out a bit better, and yeah, especially some higher speeds out at Malalah Matsuri. Feel what the car's really sort of built for and how it wants to behave and act on a bigger circuit. Got a few laps done at JDMX Park, which was good, but yeah, the car sort of felt a bit cooped up there. Especially with my lack of experience in the car at the moment, it was really a bit of a handful. The car had come on boost, then it had just started moving, and I'm just, yeah, it was shit everywhere, and me being pretty inexperienced in the car, it was a bit of a handful. So yeah, Malalah was good, really got to stretch its legs, plenty of runoff on the track, and a bit of a faster pace track, especially into turn 1 and turn 2, so the car really got to sort of show me what it had to offer, which was good because I also got to feel out a couple of its little niggly issues that it's got, and yeah, sort of really got a good test day out of it more than anything. So I came away from that with a few things I need to fix and change, and a few setup things I want to try and work on. So yeah, we'll go over a couple of those in this video. Probably won't really do any work on the car, it's more of just an oversight, or an overview of the car rather. Yeah, just sort of go over what I found and what I want to change. So first thing, I'll chuck a couple of clips in of what I'm trying to explain here. But yeah, basically the wastegate was coming loose and causing the car to lose all power.
Something's not happy.
Pretty sure you can't really see too much down in here, but yeah, so there's the wastegate down in there. You can only really see one of the nuts on that flange that hold it to the manifold, but yeah, basically what was happening is all of the nuts that mount the wastegate were coming loose, and then the wastegate had dropped down 3 or 4 millimeters, and it had just vent all of the exhaust pressure out instead of spooling the turbo up. So yeah, you'd go from the only spot on the track it was happening was turn 2, so you'd come through turn 1 full power, making 300 kilowatts and fuckload of torque, and transition, and it was literally just after the transition the car had settled, you'd go to get back on power and then absolutely nothing, like it had 50 kilowatts. So yeah, that was a bit annoying. It happened a couple of times throughout the day. So I've got a theory as to why I think it's happened. As you can see there, the heat wrap on the screamer pipe sort of chafing, and if I can get the stupid camera in there far enough, it's actually rubbed all the way through. The dump pipe's contacting on the screamer. Well, it's not at the moment. There's a bit of an air gap there if I was to pull both the wraps off. But as the car's being driven, it's coming into contact with the screamer pipe, and it's chafed all the way through that. It's split the heat wrap itself. So what I think has happened is that when I built the exhaust, I only put a pair of hangers right at the rear near the resonator. So basically as far back on the exhaust as I could. There's no hangers midway down the exhaust, which has been an oversight on my behalf. So I mean, it does have a flex pipe just after this elbow that goes under the firewall there. So there is a flex pipe there, but there's obviously contact going on. So what I'm thinking's happened is, as I'm going through turn 1, which is a high-speed right-hand corner for those that don't know, I think the exhaust is sort of flexing to the outside of the car, and then the dump pipe's hitting on the screamer, which is holding the gate up, so it's sealing and making power. And then as I transition into turn 2, the exhaust, I think, is flexing to the driver's side of the car a bit, which is allowing the air gap between the dump pipe and the screamer to open up. And then because of the vibration causing the nuts to come loose, I think that's then allowing the gate to drop down, which vents all your exhaust gas out instead of spooling the turbo up. And a downside of that as well is, if you can see down in here, a bit hard to see, but it's actually started to melt some of that wiring in there, because yeah, basically the gate drops down on this outside edge, and then vents all the exhaust gas out and straight onto that wiring there, which is less than ideal. That's the thermofan wiring, airflow meter wiring, and a couple of other things. So yeah, less than ideal. It's not the kind of things I want to be smashing with hot as exhaust gas. So yeah, I'm going to make a bit of a heat shield up and tie that wiring up to the side a little bit more, just in case anything does happen, and just to protect it from heat in general a little bit more than it is. And then yeah, obviously sort this gate issue out so it doesn't happen again. Yeah, I'll probably chuck a couple of extra hangers in the exhaust too. And then yeah, I reckon I'm going to put a couple of Nord lock washers on the wastegate itself, just to, you know, completely rule out any chance of that coming loose again. Especially if I'm in front of anybody, that's the last thing I want. I had Tom Monkhouse behind me on one lap, and then the car just completely died on turn 2, and I just kind of had to, you know, string it together and pull through the corner, because the last thing I wanted was to sort of straighten up in front of him and, you know, cause a crash. So yeah, it's less than ideal. Don't want that sort of stuff happening. So yeah, that was probably the only real big mechanical issue with the car. Other than that, it drove relatively well for the whole day. I got to feel it out pretty well, which was good. Ran into a little bit of an issue with the steering. So yeah, basically I was having a little bit of problems with it, mainly sort of showing its face on turn 2 again, but you know, a bit of higher speed, higher load, big angle. As the car transitioned and I'd sort of get it to come onto lock, I was finding it extremely difficult to basically find any confidence in when the car was going to settle. And ideally I want to be able to get the transition out of the way and then jump back on the power as soon as I can. And that point at which I can jump on the power, I can't predict it. I'm finding it extremely unreliable, or unpredictable rather, to actually pick that point. And a couple of the times I thought I was going to get on it, and it was all sweet. The car felt nice and balanced. Then I got on power, and then it'd just spin on me. I'll probably chuck a clip of that in here. Then yeah, once I got it home, I found out it's a bit hard to see in there. I don't know if you can see that really shiny lip on the edge of that barrel. There's one on that side, and it's also happening on this side. Oh, smashing the camera on everything. It's a bit hard to see in there. But yeah, both of the inside barrels were contacting the jam nuts on the tie rods. So I think what was happening is basically, as I'm coming around to full lock, it's the wheel barrels hitting the tie rod end, which is basically like having the foot brake on the front wheels only. So I'm thinking that was why it was extremely nervous coming to that balance point of getting full lock before getting on the power again. Yeah, so I'm thinking that's what potentially was happening and making the front wheel slow its rotation down a bit, and then causing me to spin on a couple of occasions. So yeah, got to sort that out. I've got a couple of ideas with this. Obviously, if I space the wheel out a bit further, I could get the on full lock, the barrel will be further away from the tie rod, which is something that I am thinking of doing. But also, there's another issue that I'm having where the car feels really lazy on transitions. Like it's not really responding to steering inputs too much or whatever. When I want to force a change of direction, it's a lot more noticeable at higher speeds as well. But yeah, basically from turn 1 to turn 2, if I want a really nice snappy transition, it's a bit hard to get it to happen. Yeah, I can steer into the transition a little bit, and I don't want to get off of power for a long time and then slow up and do a big boring transition. I want to sort of come through one on grunt, get right out to the ripple strip, and then snap the transition, and then get into turn 2, on power nice and early. And it's just doesn't feel like it wants to do it. Like I'll come through turn 1, decent amount of angle on power, and then the car will just wash out wide. Like, not wash out wide, that's probably a poor way of describing it, but it just hangs out for ages. Like, it feels more like a Safiro than it does an S13. Just feels like it wants to hang out for too long. And even if I steer into the transition, it's, instead of getting the car to start changing direction and shifting some weight, it just feels like it pushes the front through. It'll sort of get a little bit of understeer, and then it'll sort of get the transition happening really slowly, which isn't what I want. I want it to be nice and responsive to steering inputs, especially on those transitions. I really want to, if I steer into it, I want it to start changing directions then and there. Obviously there's a fair bit of, driver input there, me learning the car and all, but I've driven a fair few of these things, and I would like to think that situation the car could do better than it is currently. So one of my ideas is, the way I set this up initially, you can't really see it in here, but the car's set up with extremely low scrub radius. Like, it's not a negative scrub radius by any means, it's probably fairly close to standard with the way I've got it all set up. The only difference would be a slight offset difference in the wheel to a stock wheel. Other than that, the scrub radius is fairly standard. So I'm thinking I want to increase the scrub a little bit, and to do that, I've currently got a 30mm extended lower control arm, so I'll probably chuck a standard length arm in there, and then run probably a 30 or a 35mm spacer on there to gain some scrub radius. So the theory behind that is, with a bit more scrub radius, hopefully the car will sort of, you'll get a bit more load and spring from the steering once the the car starts to transition and you let go of the wheel. Hopefully the car sort of really wants to snap and change directions a bit faster through that. So in doing that, running the spacer there, I'll sort of killing two birds with one stone. I'm gaining a little bit more scrub, which hopefully will speed the transitions up, and also get the wheel out further away from the tie rod end. So I'll hopefully alleviate that issue there where the barrel of the wheel's coming into contact with the tie rod. So yeah, there's one thing hopefully we'll tick off the list before I get to drive it next time. Yeah, so there's that. There's also another thing, sort of getting on the same topic with the transitions. The cars, I'll chuck a photo up. I think I've got one that shows it fairly well. The car really rolls over on high speed and high load corners. So it's really rolling to the rear of the car and then sort of leaning as well, like it's got a bit of roll to it, loading up the outside rear tyre quite a bit, and then also through that it would be unloading the outside rear tyre. So yeah, I've still got a standard sway bar in the rear end. Standard sway bar. Got no sway bar in the rear end at the moment. See, there's absolutely nothing in here. Like, it's doesn't even have one with one link removed. It's completely got nothing. So I'm thinking of chucking a sway bar back in here. I'll probably just chuck a standard one to start with. I don't want to go crazy and chuck like a GTR one in. Don't want to go too big straight off the bat. So yeah, hopefully that'll level the back of the car out, and also hopefully that'll help with the transitions as well. Hopefully, having a little bit more weight on the outside wheel instead of really leaning over and just loading up one of them. Hopefully that'll help the car sort of push through the transitions and speed that weight shift up a little bit. Yeah, so just a couple of ideas for now, sort of put them into practice and see how they go, I guess. Yeah, so I think that's most of those issues. Just trying to think off the top of my head. There's a couple of other things happening with the rear as well. So with the tyres off the car, you see we're getting relatively even camber wear side to side, which is good. Just wearing a little bit too much on the insides for my liking. You see there, both of the outer sides of those wheels, the tyres still have quite a bit of tread left on them in comparison to the inside. This one here especially, being from the driver's side or the right hand side of the car, sees the most load and temperature, I would assume, being that it's the one that gets loaded up and roasted around turn 2. So yeah, it's really cooked that inside edge there. This one here sort of survived a little bit more. So yeah, I'll probably end up taking a little bit more camber out of the car and seeing how that goes. Hopefully it evens out the tyre contact. So yeah, there's one of the things I just want to sort of touch on. It's still got standard rear knuckles in it, so stock camber gain and all of that, which I think's working fairly well. As the car sort of moves around, it's gaining camber under compression into the high speed corners, which seems to be doing pretty well. Like just looking at the tyre wear there, it's not like it's gaining a little bit too much camber, but I think with half a degree or a degree less, it'll be pretty on point, I think. So yeah, there's that. And probably one of the main issues in the rear that I'm running into as well is sort of a bit of a telltale of it here. Bit of contact from the inside, the wheel's pushing the nutcert out. And have a bit of a look under here. So you sort of see up in there that the tyre under compression has come into contact with the body of the car, and then also the fiberglass, so it's pushing the nutcert out of the flare. The tyres come right into contact with the body of the car there. So yeah, not ideal. So yeah, obviously my bump travel and everything's all up the shit in the rear. So I'm probably going to go over that a little bit. I'll probably see how much motivation I can get. If I can be fucked, I'll pull the spring out and reset the bump travel and droop and all of that. Do it properly. If I can't be bothered doing that before the next time I drive, I'll just raise the car a little bit. I'll probably give it, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch extra height in the rear, and see how that goes, see if it stops smashing up there. And that also gives us a good view of the shoddy job I did for cutting the body out there. It's relatively neat as far as the body goes, like the cut and all of that, but I haven't sealed up any of the gaps, which I'll insert a clip here. It's letting a lot of smoke into the car, so yeah, it's not ideal. Hard to breathe, hard to see. Yeah, don't want any of that, so it's another thing I'm going to have to fix. We'll seal all of that up properly, get it all good and airtight, not letting any smoke in the car. Yeah. As for the rest of it, I think it's fairly well good. One thing I did notice when I first got back was that all of the suspension arms in the rear were all coming loose. The cradle itself had actually backed the nuts off 1/2 a turn each, so yeah, everything, it's 100% Heim joints now, and solid mounted cradle to the body. The only rubber bushes remaining are in the actual steering knuckle itself, so there's a lot of vibration and everything going through all of this. Even these Nordlock nuts on the suspension arms started to come off a little bit. I got 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn on most of those, so it's just something I'm going to have to keep an eye on. Bolt check the car every time I drive it. Probably get in the habit of marking it all with Texter. That would be the ideal thing to do if I stop being lazy. So yeah, a few things to check out there. You sort of get a bit of a view up here of the exhaust. There's my pretty crude exhaust hanger. There's nothing else the whole way down, so yeah, it's literally 6 or so foot of exhaust pipe with one mount on it, so it's not ideal. I need to fix that. One other thing I haven't talked about yet is since the last video talking about the setup, I did change the dampening settings and the rear tyre pressures as well, which seemed to make a massive difference. The first time I drove the car, I had these rear dampeners set to the 5 clicks from the softest, and it was a dog to drive. Was really unforgiving on the throttle. Yeah, it was really hard. Like if I'd made a mistake and fucked my line up and needed to really get off the throttle a little bit, adjust my line or make any corrections or anything, it was it'd fall out of boost really easily, especially with the grip. This turbo doesn't really come on till 4 as well, so you've really got to keep it up in the meat. Yeah, so that was just making it really doggy to drive. It was just really bouncy in the back, and yeah, so anyway, I ended up bumping the rear dampeners up another 5 clicks. So I think these are a 30 or a 32 click dampener. So the current settings, it's at the 10th click from the softest, and that was night and day difference. Really freed the car up on the throttle a fair bit, especially around turn 2 when it's like really G'd up on the rear end. Yeah, made night and day difference. And then also chucked another 5 psi in the rear tyres, went from 25 to 30. So yeah, it seems to be a good thing. So there's that. I'll probably keep them as they are at the moment. I'll still run 30 in the rear tyres. I'll keep the dampening settings the same, and then do the sway bar. Yeah, sway bar, ride height, or bump, travel, change, and then drive the car again and see what happens, and then yeah, make any changes from there. Cool. So yeah, that's the the meat of it. It's engine side of things still performing amazing. It's good to get a couple of track days under the engine now. I think I've gotten over all of those dramas we had on the dyno. Hopefully it's all smooth sailing from here. I drained the catch can after Mitsuri, and literally only a handful of drops of moisture and alcohol came out of it from the E85. There was 0 drops of oil, so the engine's nice and healthy. Doesn't seem to be breathing at all. So yeah, pretty bloody happy with it. Just need to sort this wastegate issue out and a few other niggly things, and yeah, then it's just me sorting my driving out, which I seem to be struggling to do at the moment. It's taking me longer than I would have liked to learn this car, but it's a good challenge though. It's welcome. It's not the same boring old thing over and over again, which is good. What else? I don't think I've spoken about the clutch side of things yet. In the last video I spoke about the Tilton clutch delay valve, so that definitely made a huge difference. Highly recommend that to anybody. There's other brands that do them as well, it doesn't have to be a Tilton one. But yeah, if you've got an aggressive clutch, like this is an ACS twin plate, and they're fairly renowned for being aggressive and being harsh on driveline components. So yeah, 100%. If you've got a clutch that's just destroying things, chuck one of those guys in there. Like yeah, for the $300 I spent on that, I'd rather that than RB25 gearboxes are super expensive now, and most of them are pretty flogged out anyway. So it's not exactly something you want to be going replacing every couple of events. But yeah, so that's currently got the loosest orifice size in there in the restrictor. I'm probably going to bump that up to the middle one and see how that goes, because it is still just a little bit bitey. Like, it is a lot better, but I think just that little bit extra give could be helpful. So I'm going to change that over and then see how it goes. Hopefully it doesn't induce any clutch slip or anything like that. So yeah, we'll chuck the middle orifice in there, see how that goes, and then yeah, got all the other things I want to sort of change and alter before the next drive. And yeah, so the next video I'll probably see how I go. Working on the car and recording at the same time is a massive undertaking. Just sort of draws all the work out that much longer, and half the time I forget to set a camera up. So you know, I might chuck some clips of work in if I get around to it. But yeah, if not, the next video will be either driving the car or after having driven the car, and going over the changes and improvements and what worked, what might not have, and yeah, any ideas from there on out. So I think I'm going to call it there for this one. If anyone's even still listening to me dribble shit in this video. So yeah, if you are, thanks, and yeah, see you next time.